and entrepreneur straight out of New York City, Michael Chernow. What's cracking?
It's funny because for a while, and until I did this more intense meditation training, I was like a red wine girl. I'd have a glass of red wine at night, and it would be like just a glass, and I was usually getting like the dry farm wines or like the, you know, the real organic, really good ones, and like a bottle could last me maybe 4 days. But I've been not drinking at all. And again, I noticed like, wow, what a difference it makes in my energy, in my mood, in my sleep, in everything. I didn't think like, and I don't want to be a downer because I'm like, I get it. Like, it's so nice to have a glass of wine with your friends and with your family. And I'm not going to be one of those like, oh, I'm never going to drink. But I do notice that it's that consistency again, like with my meditation practice. I just notice the positive effects more.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Creatures of Habit Podcast for another awesome episode with another awesome guest. Today I have Kristin McGee on the show. She is a yoga, meditation, Pilates specialist. She is a educator. She is also helped Peloton launch their whole entire yoga arm. So she launched that with Peloton. And she does a lot in the world of mobility, strengthening the core, and she's an expert in the world of yoga and Pilates. So I'm really, really excited to have her on the show to talk about that, specifically because I am personally going through some mobility stuff myself. I've been doing CrossFit for, you guys know now, if you've been following along my journey, I've been doing CrossFit for almost a year. It's a new sport for me, lots of new modalities, and lots of challenge. I'm trying to get my body to do the things that are required to do CrossFit at a competitive level. So I'm excited to talk to Kristin about ways that maybe she can suggest I be better, because yoga is definitely going to become, or is becoming, a bigger part of my life today. Kristin.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And that is so cool that you're actually going like competition level CrossFit.
Yeah, so I have a problem where I very rarely can do something without wanted to compete in it, whether it's business or sports or, you know, I want to be the best dad, you know, I want to be the best husband. I really do like showing up and challenging myself to be better on a day-to-day basis, you know. And so when it came to CrossFit, I walked into the CrossFit gym and I really wanted to get, I was doing bodybuilding for a while, and it just got to a point where I was like, this isn't healthy anymore. With the nutrition is really unhealthy, and I was, you know, doing it naturally, so like the nutrition's really unhealthy. I mean, you're basically eating nothing and training really hard.
And it's so programmed and it's so restricted.
I think I would say that knowing that I can do that for a number of years and like actually somewhat be good at it was pretty cool. I don't recommend it. That kind of nutrition restriction. It's really intense. So I want to talk about you. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay. I moved to New York in the 90s. I went to NYU acting school, discovered yoga in my acting classes. And this was in the 90s before yoga was really popular. And I was going to Jivamukti on 2nd Avenue and studying every single day because I just had fallen in love with it. I'm similar to you, where when I find something that I'm passionate about, I put everything into it. So I was like at the studio all the time. And
with Ruth?
Oh yes, Ruth was there as well. I love it when she would tell her stories in the beginning of class. And Kristin was at the front desk and you'd walk up those like wobbly stairs. It was so much fun. It was such a great community. And I certified to teach when I graduated. Started teaching at all the Crunches, Equinoxes, gyms, yoga studios in the area. They would ask me to sub Pilates classes. So I was like, oh, I need to figure out what this Pilates stuff is as well. And then I dove into Pilates, loved that, and the way the two were complementary to each other, and got picked up by MTV in 2003 to do the first MTV yoga video, which was super fun. I did 4 DVDs for MTV back in the day when people were doing DVDs. And now no one has a DVD player anymore. And I just kept on following this career path of, first of all, finding something that I absolutely love to do. It never feels like a day at work because I wake up and I'm so passionate about yoga and Pilates and keeping sane mind, body, spirit. And I reached out to Robin in 2008 In 2015, we did a campaign together. In 2018, I reached out to her and asked if Peloton was hiring yoga teachers. And her first response was like, no, I don't think so. But then a month later, she said, yes, we are. Come on in and audition. And then I started at Peloton in July of 2018.
Wow. It's so interesting, the Jivamukti story. So when I met my wife, Donna is also a yoga teacher. She's not a practicing yoga teacher. She thought that was what she was going to do, but she, maybe she will do it one day. But she was a diehard Jivamukti person, and so she dragged me along there to Sunday morning classes with Ruth when we were like in our 20s.
That is so fun.
Yeah, and I loved going there. And so yoga has played like a part of, like, yoga's been in and out of my life for years.
Yeah.
And there were two times in my life I was super dedicated for big chunks, like probably 8 to 10 months. And the first time was at Bikram Yoga in the Lower East Side. I would do that probably 4 days a week. And I was doing Muay Thai as well at that point.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I was doing those two things together, which worked really well together. And then I had a really bad injury, injured my spine doing jiu-jitsu, and like literally healed myself through doing with Ashtanga yoga.
I love it.
Yeah.
Eddie, did you ever go?
Eddie. So that's where I practiced, at the Broome Street.
Love Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie's the best. I call him Eddie Spaghetti.
Eddie Spaghetti.
So yoga, and this podcast is about habits, right? It's about habits, and it's about daily commitment to things. So I would love to ask you about a morning routine, if you have one.
100%. That's what I love about the podcast, is being a creature of habit, and how what you do daily is how you make changes in the long run, and breaking it down into those little pieces and practices that become ingrained into your lifestyle. And then once it becomes part of your lifestyle, it actually feels so good. I completely agree with you when I see you saying, like, I am addicted to my routine. And some people think I'm crazy about it, but it actually is so beneficial to me, and it makes me feel so good and comfortable. And every single morning I wake up 5:30. I set an alarm, but most of the time I wake up without it. And I do a 20-minute meditation, and that starts my day, every day, no matter what. After that, I usually end up getting a cup of coffee, because I do like a cup of coffee, and I'll get the boys ready. So I'm getting lunch boxes ready and everything ready for their school. And lately I haven't even been looking at my phone, opening my laptop. I try and save that for the last thing. I just find it's a much more calm way to enter the day. I'm a big breakfast person, so then I have breakfast. I can't wait to try your oatmeal. Looks amazing. And then after that, I take the boys to school and I'm off and running. So there are a few mornings where I'm really early to work, like 6:30 call time, and that's when I have an incredible nanny who comes and helps. Other days, I love to be able to walk my boys to school. I think it's a really nice way for us to start the day, talk about what we want to achieve that day, staying positive. And then I'm on camera, I'm teaching. If I'm not teaching, I do other things to help me support my teaching. So I go to physical therapy, like we'd been talking about right before we started, to balance out the fact that I am teaching so much yoga. And a go-to is to do a yoga practice. So I'm hypermobile. I love to stretch. I'm like Eddie Spaghetti. I could be doing yoga all day long. So balancing out with strength training. As I'm getting older, I definitely need to start doing more cardio. I love to go for some runs in the park, or meet a girlfriend and do like a power walk together. So that's about it. But no matter what, I do that 20-minute meditation in the morning, and I do another one in the afternoon.
So I want to talk about that meditation. I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast are very familiar with meditation, but I've gotten a lot of DMs from people asking me about meditation specifically and like what I do. Okay.
You meditate first thing too?
I don't meditate first. I do It's in my morning routine. It's not the first thing I do. But I meditate now for 20 minutes every morning as well. Is there a specific meditation that you do? Is it guided, or do you have your own thing?
I do my own thing, and I did a training with Light Watkins over a year ago. I had always just kind of followed my breath or woken up and done something, but after doing his program, I realized that's when everything really shifted. When he mentioned that second meditation being like a reset for your day, and how as important that one is as your morning meditation. His is Vedic meditation, so he gives you a mantra, and it's something that you just repeat in your mind, and it's more like your best friend at the party is the way he describes it. So you might have other friends coming along to say hi to you, and you just want to be nonchalant about them. So if your thoughts come, that's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it, but try and get back to your best friend so that you come back to the mantra, and that's what anchors you and grounds you in the meditation. But a lot of times you're pretty lost in thought. A lot of times your mind's kind of going all these different directions, and it's great. It's like a washing machine. It has to go through that spin cycle in order for it to finally settle. And I think you kind of go in and out of it, and it can depend on what you've been doing and how anxious your mind is. Or there's moments where I'll dip into a really great state, and then there's other days where my meditation, again, my mind's just constantly thinking about things. But he said every meditation is a good meditation. And I notice my meditation practice affects more so when I'm not meditating, in the way I react when something bothers me, and in the way I'm a better parent to my children, and the way I'm able to stop and take a breath and think about something before I communicate.
Totally. So if you had to say, like, because I think you just hit on something really important for me as well, because I've been meditating for a long time now. Mm-hmm. I am not.
Oh, I'm sorry. What style of meditation do you do?
So guided? Right now I'm just doing guided.
Okay.
And but I toggle kind of back and forth between just my own thing, where I count the in breath.
I like that.
So I just count the in breath, and I'll do that. I'll count 100 in breaths. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's 12 minutes, and if I feel like I get to 100 and I'm like, I got more. I'll go for another 50 or 100, depending on where I'm at. But right now I'm doing this 365 on Headspace, so I'm like,
oh, cool.
It's I kind of
365 days.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that.
Yeah, so it's like a full 365 days, and I hit next, and I just get into it.
That's great.
And I tend to do my meditation now in front of the red light. I've been loving the red light therapy stuff.
Oh, that is sweet.
Yeah, so I do it in front of the red light, and that red light is sort of at first it's intense with my eyes closed, obviously, but then it just what sometimes in some guided meditations they tell you to envision like an orange ball that sort of starts here and then sort of like is warming you and like kind of drapes down in that glow. So I kind of feel like that's what that red light, like it's like bright but it's warm, and so it's really nice when I do the meditation in front of the red light. I enjoy it, but I'm not one of these people that says or experiences like this, like worldly, outer body, fourth dimension, enlightenment from meditation.
I think that's the case for most people. Even Light will say that. He's like, after 15 years of doing this consistently, he's not reaching some guru meditative state. He said, I think that it's cumulative, and you notice it more so when you've missed it, that you become more reactive or a little more stressed or a little more anxious. But I don't think, it would be amazing if we could all walk around in that meditative state all day long. But I'm the same. I rarely am in this euphoric place where everything is serenity now. And and if I am there for those few seconds, I'm so quickly to get back out of it, because I think that's how our minds work. But I love the idea of that golden aura, like feeling that warmth and that circle of light around you while you're meditating.
If you had to describe like what meditation is for you, though, like why do you what do you feel like what do you think it does for you?
It completely settles me, and it connects me to my inner self more so than anything. It allows me to check in with, okay, what does Kristin really want? And even kind of like, who is Kristin? There's a lot of times where we think, or we've been put into different positions and roles in our life, like you're a husband, you're a father, you're a strength, you've owned restaurants, you're a business person, you've got all these different titles. But I feel like sometimes when you're meditating, you're just Michael, like you're just you. And it's like a warm, cozy feeling, right? Where you don't have labels, you don't have titles, you're just allowing yourself. It's very childlike too. I think it brings us back to this place of non-doing and more being.
I feel like meditation at like its simplest, sort of when I think about what it is, it's just so rare that we sit quietly and not try to go to sleep.
True.
You know, like sitting quietly, alone, typically, and not doing anything.
Very true.
Like typically when we're doing that, like we're lying down to go to bed, right? Like where it's like, okay, it's quiet time. I'm going to intentionally try to just let go and go to sleep. In meditation, it's the exact opposite, right? It's like I'm going to sit quietly, really try not to do anything, but wake the fuck up.
Yes,
you know, like it's like
so well said.
Yeah, it's like you know, because we are driven through stimulation as human beings today. It's like the thought of being bored is so scary. You know, like what do you mean? Like no phone, no book, no TV, no laptop, no person, no stimulation. Like what am I supposed to do? And I think that meditation is like a great speed bump. You know, like whoa, it's okay. It's all good.
Yeah.
You know, it's all good. Like you can also sit for 20 minutes and like do nothing and gain a lot.
A lot. Know? And nothing crazy.
And not even know what you're gaining. Like,
that's very true.
You know, like not even know, but know that like, hey, this is a challenge, you know? I think anybody that's listening to this podcast, if you are not meditating and you think it's, you know, hoity-toity or whatever, challenge yourself to do it, right? It's a hard thing to do.
It really is in the beginning.
Hard. Really hard.
And you can start with 5 minutes and build your way up to 10 and then 15. I never thought 20 minutes could go by like this once I'd gotten into such a regular routine practice.
It's so funny too that once you're meditating for 20 minutes and if you don't have the time, you say, all right, I'm going to do a 10-minute meditation today. It's like, boom.
Yeah,
it flies.
Exactly.
What about some other habits that you have done over the years that you are sort of like your non-negotiables, things that that keep you on your toes?
It's funny, but I would say eating breakfast. I don't know why that seems so crazy. I know people went through this intermittent fasting phase, and there's a lot of like talk about that recently, but something about having a really good, healthy, nourishing meal first thing in the morning that gets me going and gives me energy to do all the things I want to do. I find it's like really wonderful. I love that ritual, and I love breakfast. It's most of the foods at breakfast time are all of my favorite foods. So there's not like a breakfast that I don't really like, you know, whether it's oatmeal or eggs or Greek yogurt or protein pancakes or whatever it is. But I find that having just to sit, it's kind of like the meditation too. I often feel like by the time you get to dinner, a lot of times things are more and more frenetic and a lot's going on. And even when you try and have a quiet family meal, with 3 boys now, everyone's talking at once. Where like that morning breakfast ritual where you have time to really sit with yourself and nourish yourself, you can slow down, you don't have to rush so much. That's important to me. I like that.
What's your favorite breakfast? And you don't have to say anything about oatmeal.
I don't have to say your oatmeal. Oh, that's tough because I really like so many breakfasts. I do love a good like egg and avocado toast breakfast. It's so good because I love salsa. And I like spicy. I like to put like Tabasco on my eggs, like whip them up with like some spinach or vegetables. I feel like that's when I get a lot of vegetables and blueberries. I love anything with blueberries in the morning. And I do like a good yogurt, granola, nuts, all that kind of stuff.
You like it all.
I like it all. I do. And I do love the oats. Absolutely. I feel like oatmeal's so good. I do love that you have the added protein because I do notice when I just eat oatmeal alone, I get a little hungry like by 10
That was
a.m.,
the whole purpose of it.
Where I need something that has a little more
fat and protein added to oatmeal is necessary in order to make it like a sustainable meal. Yeah.
And then another habit, I'm trying to think, well, my yoga practice, every day I do something, whether it's a long 1.5-hour class or it's a 20-minute flow, or you said you took a 15-minute yoga class and it pretty much kicked your butt.
Kicked my ass. Yeah. Legitimately kicked my ass this morning on the floor of the hotel room. I was like, whoa, that was so hard. Tell us that like yoga, you know, there's like so many different types of yoga. Like at its core though, what do you think, like can somebody just do yoga and be fit and like what's your thought on that?
I think that's a really good question because as I get older, I definitely rely on being more well-rounded, having more strength in my routine, although I do a lot of yoga, so I need something to balance it out. I do think yoga is an incredible workout for people and that it gets you moving in all different planes. You have lateral movement, you're doing inversions, you're doing arm balances, you're standing on your feet. That's what's nice. I do feel like it's very full body. I think that at the very core of all yoga practices is the breath. So it gets people connected to their breathing, and just having a breathing exercise and just being able to breathe is
I want to unpack that a little bit because that's one thing that I will be honest. I've been on and off with yoga a bunch. Mm-hmm. I've never really connected the breath to the practice.
Interesting.
So like I've never moved outside of like being in down dog and the teacher says, okay, so we're going to take 5 breaths here. Mm-hmm. But like going through a flow, I've never really like made sure that my breath was on time with the actual flow.
That was moving with the flow.
Yeah.
Like
is that like a big deal in your opinion?
I think it's more important for it not to have to be exactly linked, but it's more important that you're aware of your breath and that you're taking in those deep, full breaths in and out through your nose during the practice. So it doesn't really matter so much if you're not doing an inhalation on an upward dog, which usually inhalations bring you up. Usually exhalations bring you forward. So if you think of like inhale up with the arms, exhale forward as you fold, inhale lift your chest, exhale go back.
That's a really good way to put it.
Doesn't that help?
That's it. Inhale
and a lot
up,
of times,
exhale down.
Exhale down, yeah. And so I think that is kind of nice because it does keep you in that really rhythmic flow. But as long as you're actually just breathing, that's what's important. Because I think we don't realize how often we hold our breath or how often we are shallow breathing or we're not taking in a full diaphragmatic breath. So I feel like that's really important with the practice.
Is there a time of day that you think is like a better time to do yoga?
I think it's whenever you'll stay with it, consistent with it, because there's so many different, you get so many different results with each time of the practice. In the morning, I feel like you get a lot of energizing effects. Midday, your body's a little more open and loose, so it feels good. I have a friend in Sweden who only practices in the afternoon. She does her cardio in the morning, her yoga practice in the afternoon, because she feels like her body's more open. Where if you go into like some back bends first thing in the morning, it can be a little intense. Yeah. In the evening's a nice way to wind down. And restorative practice is always nice at night. I think you kind of have to tailor your practice to fit the time of the day. Mid-afternoon is a great time for a real athletic practice. Don't you find that with even like strength training? And don't they say the sweet spot's a lot of time like between 2 and 4?
So for years and years, I trained in the first thing in the morning, and then totally flip-flopped that, and now I train from 11 to 1 every day.
Okay.
And I feel like that is like I feel really strong between 11 and 1.
That makes sense. Your body's awake enough. You've got that good energy. You're not too fatigued middle of the day.
Yeah, and I also I'm also happy to let my cortisol in the morning like do its thing without having to like triple up on the intensity, you know?
That's true.
So like I let cortisol sort of take me through the first like hour and a half of my day.
Is that when our cortisol is the highest?
Yeah, in the morning, right in the morning. That's when it's like firing.
Do you eat breakfast every morning?
I do.
Okay,
I do. So
good.
I was definitely on the intermittent fasting train for a long time, and I would train fasted pretty much every day for years, but I was in the gym, at 5:30 in the morning. So I was like, I wouldn't want to eat a big meal or eat a meal in general right before training. So I was always just like getting to the gym, training, and then having that meal one or, like my oatmeal with protein right after I train. These days, I don't eat right away. I do my full morning routine, which is like from like 5:15 to like 6:30, 6:45. Okay. And then I eat my first meal when my wife and kids are having their breakfast.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And so I let, but the cool thing, I think the reason why, and I could be wrong, and I could have totally just made this up, but I do believe that our cortisol is sort of firing high in the morning, because for thousands and thousands of years, we had to like
Wake up and hunt.
Wake up and protect and hunt, you know, and like make sure that everything is okay.
True.
And so we needed that sort of like to like kick off with some steam.
Yeah,
you know?
that makes total sense.
Yeah, and so I have like decided that I'm going to use that as like the energy in the morning, and I don't need to like get after it in the gym to give me that energy for the day.
To give you the extra, exactly.
Yeah, and then and that's also why I don't have coffee until I have breakfast. So I give
that makes sense.
You know, I give myself that like hour and a half, let that cortisol start to pan off, and then boom, pop it with some caffeine. You know,
I like that. And then you eat lunch after your 1 o'clock training.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll have meal 1 at around 7:30 ish. I'll work from. I'll either take my kids to school or my wife will take them. If she takes them, I just open up the computer when they leave the house. If I take them, I'll drop them off at school and then hit the office. And I tend to work, my first chunk of work every day is from like 8 a.m. till 11. And so by 11 o'clock, I have one more snack before I go into the gym, which is like a banana. Yeah. And then I go train and then I have lunch. But yeah, I like the consistency with when I train, when I eat. I think it's super important, you know, if you can. And I also love to time block my day in general. You know, I'm one of these guys. I mean, I've got discipline equals freedom tattooed on my hand.
I love that.
Yeah, I feel like when you know what you have to do, and you know what you have to do makes you feel good.
Yes.
You have ultimate freedom.
So true.
You know, and it's not for everyone though. Like,
yeah, that's true too. And having that rhythm and those time blocks as well, like your body starts to almost expect it and crave it. It's just like the same thing. If you're eating lunch at the same time every day, usually around that time, your body's like, oh, it's lunchtime.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think ultimately, you know, and I've been ridiculed for this, you know, for the structure by many a friend and folk.
They're kind of like, hey, lighten up, come on.
Yeah, loosen up, dude.
Yeah.
And I get that too, but I also think that, you know, some people just need it more than others.
That's true.
Some people need it more than others. And I would argue to say that anybody who's listening who potentially is like a little bit lost on their journey and feel like they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing or where they're supposed to be at their age, or, you know, I always say, take it back to the basics. Are you moving your body? Are you doing anything in the self-care, self-love arena? Are you eating well, or are you eating like shit? Are you oversleeping, or are you waking up in the morning? Are you hitting snooze and like essentially lying to yourself right away? Because that snooze button, in my opinion, is like the confidence deflator.
Very true.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, no, I set the alarm so that I can be up and be my best. No, I'm gonna fail on myself
right back to bed. Yeah.
Is there an evening routine that you have?
That's you just reminded me. I was just thinking about that with the sleep pattern. I noticed that, you know, a similar thing. I was always kind of teased by I have an older brother and a younger brother, and I was always pretty much the first one to be like, okay, I'm going to bed. You know, my family loves to play board games, and it's super fun. I do too, but they could be up till 1 a.m., you know, playing Trivial Pursuit or what have you. And I was always the one that was like, 9:30, 10 o'clock, see you later. And I love having that. Like, I go to bed pretty much set time most nights, almost every night, and I wake up pretty much at the same time every day. And I obviously have bath time routines with my boys and reading books with my boys and getting sure their homework's done. But it's funny because for a while, and until I did this more intense meditation training, I was like a red wine girl. I'd have a glass of red wine at night, and it would be like just a glass, and I was usually getting like the dry farm wines or like the, you know, the real organic, really good ones, and like a bottle could last me maybe 4 days. But I've been not drinking at all. And again, I noticed like, wow, what a difference it makes in my energy, in my mood, in my sleep, and everything. I didn't think like, and I don't want to be a downer because I'm like, I get it. Like, it's so nice to have a glass of wine with your friends and with your family. And I'm not going to be one of those like, oh, I'm never going to drink. But I do notice that it's that consistency again, like with my meditation practice. I just notice the positive effects more than when I'm doing those things that are very routine. You know, I'm going to bed at a good time. I'll meditate with my son, so that makes me like 3 meditations a day, but his is more a guided one that he loves to. He literally finds this guy, I think his name is like Jason Stevenson on YouTube, and he's got this voice that's so we'll listen to that meditation
Your
together.
Older son?
My oldest son, my 9-year-old.
So he's
and he
into
has
meditation?
a full sleep ritual. He has a spray. He's got his pillow.
Wow.
It's really cute.
So he sprays like lavender on the pillow?
He sprays this pillow, and then he sprays it a little bit on his body, and then he turns on his meditation, and
That's
it's
cool.
super cute that he has like a little sleep routine.
You know, it's so funny. I
Do you drink?
I don't.
No, you don't either?
No, I don't drink. I haven't drank in a long time.
Okay.
But that was because...
What about back in the restaurant days?
So I've been in recovery for almost 19 years.
Okay, wow, good
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, that was like basically my story is I was deep in a world of shit,
Okay.
and this new life of fitness, movement, just mindset stuff really set me off on a totally different life path. Mm-hmm. And I owe all the things that I get the chance to do today to actually stopping drinking.
I bet.
You know, like
Yeah.
I didn't. I mean, I was doing way more than drinking. So like I was truly on the dark side of the tracks.
Okay.
But ultimately, and I also, I'm not one of these. You know, if I could have a glass of wine,
Yeah, like a here or there. glass
I
of wine.
would.
Yeah.
Totally. But it's just not worth it for me
Yeah.
to take the risk. That said, like there's no doubt that you're just more productive when you're not drinking or hungover, you know? And I think one thing that I've noticed a lot of recently is like, you know, with the legalization of cannabis, there's a lot of people that are just smoking more cannabis.
As opposed to drinking, now they just take a gummy or an edible or smoke.
Right. And
Yeah.
they're like stoned half the time. And, you know, it's hard for me not to just like be somewhat conscious of it, you know? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Everybody's entitled to do what they want to do. I do believe that having fun is having fun, and then like needing to do something every single day is a totally different experience.
100%.
You know?
And when you start to get into this routine and this lifestyle and you feel good about yourself and you're sleeping well and you're eating well and you're fit, you're having fun. You don't really need anything extra. You can be out with friends dancing and you feel great. You know, you don't need to be drunk. As a matter of fact, that's like an escaping. I feel like the more you meditate, the more you want to be present with whoever you're with and whatever you're doing. And a lot of times the drugs and the alcohol are taking you out of that moment.
Yeah,
out of
I mean,
that
look, I
present
think
state.
I-
and there's always a time and place for like, you know,
going for it.
but-
Totally go for it. Like,
Yeah.
and enjoy every
enjoy
second
it
of
and
it.
know you're doing it. Like you're intentionally like, this is my girlfriend's 40th and we're going to go have some drinks.
We're going ham. We're going
Exactly.
ham with the babysitters
And
are in.
tomorrow morning, my routine's not going to be exactly like
Totally.
Yeah, totally.
Totally. And by the way, like even though I don't drink and partake in like the partying aspect of things, I'm totally intentional when I'm like, hey, you know what, tonight I'm going out with the brothers, I'm going
Yeah.
out with the dudes,
Yep.
and I'm not going to bed till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Totally.
And I am like arguably the life of the party, totally
I love
sober,
that.
you know, and like I think, you know, so if there's anybody out there that is struggling, right? Like if you think if you're questioning whether alcohol or drugs are taking a toll on your body or taking a toll on your life or impacting your life in a bad way, chances are it is. That's it. Like if you're questioning it, chances are it is. And that's what I've learned over the years, you know, because being in the restaurant business for so long, and, you know, pretty much, you know, I at one point, I had 700 employees when I was running, you know, Meatball Shop and Seymour's. And there was never a time where I was actually at the helm of both companies together, but I
Okay.
was the co-founder of Meatball Shop, and we built it to 300-400 people. And then I opened up Seymour's, and we ultimately built that to about 300 people.
Wow.
And so it was a lot of people that I was essentially in charge of, right? And everybody at the company kind of knew. It wasn't like like I wasn't like boasting about it, but just knew that I was sober. And if they had a problem, or if they felt like they were struggling, they could always come and talk to me.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was like one of those things that I felt like was, and there was a lot of people that ended up completely changing their whole entire life by doing that, Anyway, I want to talk more about so your evening routine is what now?
So my evening routine is, once I get the boys from school, we hunker down, we do some homework. I let them have like 30 minutes to an hour of screen time if they want to do whatever it is that they do. It's like Roblox these days, or I don't know, Minecraft, right? And then we have dinner together. We all sit at the table and have dinner. And then I start getting them baths, getting them ready for bed. I am trying to read more now in the evening. I find that a big habit of mine is to like open up that's when I sometimes will get on social media and start to like scroll too quickly. And I'm like, oh wait, I would rather dive into a good book. Or I do a lot of my class plans and playlisting. So that's a really fun part of my job at Peloton, is all our classes are set to music. So prior to that, I got to this point where I was teaching yoga mostly to breath. Like even Eddie's class, Ashtanga, it's just him speaking. He doesn't have music playing in the background. So now I get to playlist, and I love music. So listening to music is a really fun part of my evening routine.
Is Eddie at Peloton too?
He's not, but I'm saying like when he and I were, the way we used to teach would just be mainly breath.
Totally.
And so listening to music, playlisting, if it's a weekend, I'll put on like a fun movie for the boys and I to watch. I'm trying to get them into some of the movies I used to watch like back in the day, but they're not falling for some of them.
I've been trying to do that too.
It's so fun, right? You're like, come on, this is so good.
I tried to put on,
this is so old.
Do you remember The Last Dragon? Do you remember that movie?
Yes.
So I tried to show them The Last Dragon, and they just were not having it at all. Not ready yet.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
And I'll do my class plans, write, type, and then, I usually, by the time my 9-year-old's going to bed, around like 9:30, listening to that meditation, that's when I am pretty much lights out as well, like between 9:30 and 10. But it's pretty simple. I mean, might sound kind of boring, because it's like dinner with the boys, get them ready, then do a little bit of me time, some fun, like whether it's listening to music, choreography, creating class plans. I would love a good book recommendation if people have good book recommendations. That's about it.
I'm reading a really great book right now that's just super entertaining. I needed like a good entertaining book, because I'm always reading some nonfiction,
positive
thought.
Same. I do a lot of that
too. But I just picked up a book called Your Table is Ready. Okay. And it's a book. It's also an autobiography about like one of the, I forgot his name, but he's like one of the most renowned New York City maitre d's, restaurant maitre d's.
That's fun.
And he is a character. It's so weird, because like he's doing it right now. I mean, he's been doing it he's older than me, so he's been doing it for longer than I have in terms of like in the world of restaurants in New York. But like his first real gig was at the Water Club on the East Side on like 30th Street. And he just tells these unbelievably fun stories. I mean, it's real sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Okay.
But it's such a good depiction of the true world of New York City restaurants. It doesn't matter how fancy. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. I highly recommend that one.
Okay.
I love reading too. And now that you say that, I think
we'll play board games sometimes too. That's another thing I've been trying to get my boys reintroduced. Like we'll play Clue, or we'll play Sorry, or we'll play Scrabble, or I'm not that great at chess. I wish I was better, but I find like getting off of the screens and playing a board game or reading a book or doing something like that is really important. I'm trying to be more intentional about that.
Totally. I want to ask just a few more questions real quick.
Okay.
Because yoga and Pilates are your thing. What is how would you distinguish yoga and Pilates?
Good question. Yoga I find is much more, it's a 5,000-year-old practice, steeped in a lot more than just a physical practice. So there's an entire philosophy in the Hatha yoga practice, and the Hatha yoga, the physical practice is just one part of the whole yoga. So I find like people that start doing yoga physically actually end up finding more spiritual path and just like diving into that in some respect. But they also find that it's just an incredible way to stay mobile, like you were saying, flexible, increase your breathing capacity. You really are focusing on your breath. And there's a lot of different of postures, over 300 different postures. So it feels like you can learn, it's never ending. I think the yoga is such a lifelong practice that constantly gets more and more exciting the more you dive into yourself and the more you explore the postures and how they feel at each stage in your life. That's why it's great, I think, for kids to start, and you can do it all the way into your old age. Pilates is more core, and Joseph Pilates brought it over in the early 1900s to the States, and he was a boxer, and he worked with prisoner of war veterans, so that's why you see some of the contraptions he made, almost looking like a hospital bed. But he was saying, your powerhouse, your core, is the most important part of your body. You really need to learn how to train from your center so that you stay injury-free. I think a lot of PT is great with Pilates because it is about stabilizing your spine, lengthening your spine, having good posture. And it's a lot of mainly core-focused work, even though you're going to get some upper body, lower body. And then there's the equipment part of the Pilates practice. So if you wanted to go and take it on a reformer or on the Cadillac or in a studio, and then there's the mat where you can just do like yoga. You can take your mat anywhere and do a mat-based Pilates practice. I find Pilates a little bit more, calisthenic-y, and yoga a little bit more like moving meditation, if that's a good way to distinguish them.
Do you prefer one to the other?
I don't. I love them both. I feel like both have such a great place in my fitness routine, and they're great for each other. The stronger I am in my core, the easier it is to handstand and arm balance, and the more flexible I am from my yoga practice, the easier it is to do certain moves in Pilates, like scissors and leg circles and all of that.
Because before we hopped on, I was telling you about how I'm incorporating yoga more into my life. It's I just know that I have to do it. I'm always I gotta go hard, I gotta go big, I gotta. And realistically, I know that if I were to use yoga as a active recovery day for me in between a heavy strength day, so if I lift heavy, do yoga. Lift heavy, do yoga, lift heavy, do yoga, I will most likely be far more efficient in my strength and CrossFit stuff.
100%. You'll recover better, you'll have more range of motion, and that mobility is only going to allow you to take your muscles through a larger range of motion, right? Don't you even plyometric-wise in a lot of CrossFit? I haven't done CrossFit really, but that's going to help in so many ways.
Yeah, it's the whole entire sport of CrossFit for the most part is explosive.
So even think of ankle mobility in yoga and all of that.
Totally.
Yeah.
So so for somebody like me, and a lot of the listeners are also athletic and or athletes, is there a specific place to go for yoga for an athlete?
I would say Peloton.
Yeah.
100%
right.
because we are pretty much geared towards all the cyclists where the Peloton started with the bike, and a lot of entryway to Peloton is someone who's on a bike, who's an athlete, who's riding hard, who's probably also training, because we have the whole strength training component on Peloton, and they need that active recovery, and they need to realize that yoga can be a great complement to their routine and their workouts and help them become a better athlete, and I feel like a more lifelong athlete. Because if you don't start taking care of yourself and you don't find that flexibility and mobility, eventually you're going to start to really notice later on in life how things get tighter, more constricted. We want that fluid and that flow, right? You want things to be moving. And I feel like even with the yoga practice that I just feel like it gets your lymph going and your body stimulated and everything feels so much better.
I've never finished a yoga class and didn't feel awesome.
Refreshed, right?
Totally good.
And so I think Peloton's great because we also have 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute, 45, 60-minute. We have 60-minute classes for the diehard yogis, 75 minutes for someone who wants to really, the yogis who come to Peloton for the platform. But I also find that we have an intro to yoga entire 30-day. If someone's brand new, they could say, oh, how do I even begin? And then, I think the beautiful thing about yoga practice, too, is you can start to really listen to yourself and be self-guided in the morning, wake up and do a few downward-facing dogs. And what you gain from your classes, you'll notice you might start incorporating them. Maybe even you do it after a CrossFit.
For me,
this would feel really good to do a triangle after I just did that.
Every morning, I do my prayers, I do my push-ups, and then I do down dog.
Prayers and push-ups.
Prayers and push-ups. It's a big thing for me for years. But it's prayers, push-ups, and then poses.
I love that.
Because I do down dog, up dog, and I'll do that for 5 breaths, 5 rounds of each of those.
Yes.
And then I do cat cow, same thing. And those
perfect.
4 movements for me are like money.
Yes.
They're so good. They're so good. They like open me up. I feel like cat cow specifically for lower back people, like huge. It's so good. It's just like the mobility back there, and just even just doing it now, I'm feeling like I'm ready.
Yeah, right. Then that's funny because Joseph Pilates does cat cow even in Pilates. He took some of his stuff from yoga as well because he found it was so important in cross training, but in his method. But I agree with you. Just even doing some cat cows in the morning, getting flexion and extension into your spine, it's so nice.
Yeah, like I think one thing, you know, I always love to give the listeners like a few things each episode to just like grab with them. You know, and I think if you want to incorporate one little thing, like do down dog, up dog, and do cat cow, it takes literally 3 minutes, 5 minutes
at the most.
And you're opening up your body. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to have a better morning after a short stretch than not.
Very true.
You know?
I used to always joke, like, a down dog a day keeps the doctor away. Like, it literally, like, if you can get that kind of flexibility in your spine and you're opening up your hamstrings and your shoulders and you're getting mobility in your upper and your lower body, because that one pose in and of itself, down dog, pretty much gets everything.
Totally. Opens up my shoulders, totally stretches my calves and my hamstring, my whole posterior.
Yeah.
Like, I need that, you know? I still have yet to be able to do a real down dog with my heels on the ground. I'm working on it. on it.
I'll help. Like, I'll give you some assist as well. But I also tell people that you don't have to get your heels on the ground. Like, half the time I'm doing downward facing dog, and I purposely walk my feet back a little bit further so that my heels aren't on the ground, so that I get
that
more
little
range
extra.
of motion. Yeah.
This was so much fun.
This was so much fun.
I really appreciate you coming in, sharing your story with us, sharing some habits with us. If we want to follow along, we want to see what you're up to on a day-to-day basis. How do we do that?
You'll see me at Kristin McGee on Instagram. It's Kristin with an I. And you'll see my 3 little boys kind of running around with me a lot. And I have a really fun cat, Lucky, who my one son, Robert, thinks Lucky does all the yoga with me. So even yesterday, he was like trying to push Lucky into the filming. As I was filming, he's like, look at Lucky sitting crisscross applesauce. It was so cute. And then on Peloton. So all my classes are there. Meditation, yoga, Pilates. I have yoga conditioning now as well, which is fun. We add light weights. So it's a little bit more, almost think like yoga bar type class where you get a little bit more of the pull action in it, because with yoga it's mostly press. You don't get a lot of pull, so that's really fun. I have kids classes on the platform too.
Oh, that's great.
Which is really fun. Family yoga, family meditation, and pre and postnatal.
That is awesome. So right now you're teaching predominantly on Peloton.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Well, this was so much fun, Kristin. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know this is going to be a value episode, and I can't wait to take one of your classes.
I know. We'll have to do that for sure.
I need a little bit of extra love in getting myself into those postures, man. My body has been through a bunch. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Creatures of Habit. Do me a favor, please. Please. Go check out Kristin on social media and on Peloton. If you're looking to get into yoga, want to get into Pilates, maybe you want to step into meditation, Kristin is doing that on Peloton for you. So that would be a really, really cool way to connect with her. And also share this podcast with someone that you think may appreciate it. Someone in your family, one of your friends, anyone really who you think might enjoy the value that was brought to the podcast today. A 5-star rating and a little review would be awesome too. I am giving away every single week now, as you know, if you've been listening to the podcast, every week for the foreseeable future, we'll be giving away a box of Meal One or a bag of nightcap, totally up to the winner, randomly choosing a winner who writes a review on Apple Podcasts. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Until the next one, y'all. Peace.